There we go. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Information Warfare Pavilion and our 3 days of robust speakers program here. We're very happy this afternoon to have Rear Admiral Doug Small join us, Commander, Naval Information Warfare Systems Command. He's from Birchwood, Wisconsin. Graduated from Marquette University. I almost went to school there. With a Bachelor of Science in Physics, and he holds a doctorate in physics from the Naval Postgraduate School. Lots of operational tours. He was an engineering duty officer. His bio is online on the West website, as well as on Navy.mil. I urge you to read that because I'm not going to read it for you. So with that, Admiral, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you for that, and thanks for everybody coming out. This is going to be an interactive discussion. You're going to ask questions, and I'm going to attempt to answer them, or tap dance, or whatever it is to get through to the next one. What I'd like to do is just kind of share a little bit about what we do at NAVWAR. We are a systems command. A little bit about my priorities, and then kind of turn it over to you. Does that sound okay? Usually, the last couple times I've tried to make a bargain on, dare me to go through slides. Usually everybody sits there kind of like you are right now, and so I end up going through slides. That was a joke. Sorry. I have a dry sense of humor. He said I was from Birchwood, Wisconsin, little town, northern Wisconsin, right? Sense of humor, all that. Very dry. Sorry about that. Hey, so hopefully everybody got a chance to either read about or attend CNO's keynote yesterday and hear from her priorities. She really sees her effort as a continuation from, CNO Guild Day with that real strong focus on war fighting, war fighters, and foundations. And NAVWAR, of course, has a big hand in each of those priority areas. And for those who saw the acquisition panel, you'll know the answer to the question on, is acquisition doing enough to innovate, or the theme of the conference. The answer is we're never satisfied, right? And that was from Admiral Paparo this morning. So words of wisdom. So as far as NAVWAR and what it is that we do, our priorities. Number one is the people that make up the NAVWAR enterprise. Organizations don't do anything. It's the people in them that actually get stuff done. So the people that you interact with, the people that are around the floor here, the people that deliver for our sailors and Marines every day, that is our number one priority at NAVWAR. And it's everything from where do we recruit them, how do we onboard them, train them, reward them, pay them, the whole works, right? Make that an experience that people want to come to work. It's a place of choice to work in this competition for talent. So it's our number one priority. As far as in the stuff that we do, CNO talks about war fighting and having more players on the field. For us, that's readiness and on-time delivery and modernization. Getting our ships and submarines out of availabilities on time and back on the field in accordance with higher Navy priorities. And then last, we have this thing we call digitalization, but at NAVWAR we're a little bit different than the other systems commands in that we're the ones that kind of net everything together, literally and figuratively. And so this digitalization is a big part of what it is that we do. And so delivering on some of those priorities like Project Overmatch and being that connective tissue across a lot of the warfighting priorities across the Navy. So those are our priorities. We are one of the 6 naval systems commands. Our thing is communications, networking, big on data and data science, command and control, you name it. About 11,000 people all over the world. Anywhere the fleet is or staffs are, where our gear is, that's where Nav Warriors are. So all over the world. Some primary functions at our headquarters. We are the chief engineer for the Navy's command control and communications for nuclear, nuclear command and control, NC3N. We are the Cybersecurity Tech Authority. We are the Security Controls Assessor for Cybersecurity. We are the Information Warfare Tech Authority. We support 3 affiliated PEOs. Their logos are up there. That's pretty much our function at NAVWAR. I think that's it for me in terms of what I wanted to do in priorities and whatnot. I do want to kind of plant an idea about disruption, and brought it up at the other panel, but just we've tried to bring a strong focus on software and how can you deliver software and how can we change the architecture of systems as needed to make sure that we can focus on developing and delivering software, because to us that's how you get to speed and scale. And so there are so many things that have been disrupted by software. For anybody who's read the article, why is software eating the world? And now it's a follow-up, software is still eating the world. Software applications, as Admiral Paparo said, can't feed somebody, but boy, they sure have changed a lot of businesses and a lot of the ways that we do our work. So we have a strong focus on disruption. We believe disruption is absolutely needed in our profession, and that a strong focus on software, cybersecure software delivery at speed and scale is a critical enabler of that. And so with that, I would love to hear some questions from you, or I will just stand here in awkward silence.
Thanks. Hi, Admiral. Could you please describe the relationship your command has with, like, Space Force, NRO, NGA? Like, how do you work together? How do you decide who does what and in charge of what?
NRO and NGA are, of course, different agencies in the IC, right? So in particular at NAVWAR, the logo at the middle of the top up there is NAVWAR Space Field Activities. So we actually have a contingent of Navy sailors and officers at the NRO who are part of the NAVWAR family, if you will. And then we do work with NGA, but they're more on the intelligence community side of things. So we certainly provide systems that they use to do their mission, but it's a probably not a very satisfactory answer, but yeah, a lot of classified stuff, obviously, but yeah. Okay, first question is out now. Now the floodgates should be opening.
Hey, Admiral. Colin Demarest with Defense News. Last year, Admiral Michael Gilday mentioned the Carl Vinson Carrier Strike Group testing overmatch capabilities off of California. I was hoping maybe you could share some insights or some conclusions from that testing, or maybe see where we've gone from there to another strike group, or maybe where in the fleet.
Yeah, so we did a lot of testing on fielding of systems on Vinson. Vinson is deployed with our capabilities, and we certainly have moved on and fielded on additional strike groups. It's never something that we're done with. It's a constant learning and a constant improving process. And what's neat about the again, sort of the way we're delivering our tools, the software and things, is that we can take in direct fleet feedback and make the updates, in stride with the fleet. So not only have we fielded, we've updated and refielded and delivered over-the-air capabilities based on what it is that the sailors need. And it's a constant learning, growing, getting better. Updating our own systems, updating our own pipelines for how we field, how we do cybersecurity, all that is constantly trying to benchmark against what's world-class, how can we get there and move out quickly. But yeah, it's been a fast-moving couple of years, that's for sure.
Hi, Admiral. Mark Pomerleau with Defense Scoop. Is this the first time that you've been able to do over-the-air updates, and are you able to do those while they're actually deployed, or do they have to be kind of in proximity to a port or other friendly assets?
It's not the first time. We've been doing it for so we did demos years ago where we were able to show that it was certainly possible. But in terms of doing it as a matter of course, that's come within the last probably year and a half or so. And you don't need to be near a port. You can be in port, and you can get the connection over a landline, or you can be at sea and get it by satellite communications.
Hi, Admiral Greg Jose with Tridentis. We're a ship design and engineering firm ourselves, and so my question has to do with the life cycles of various systems. Ships have life cycles in the decades, electronic systems in years, software is a continuous. How are you aligning the life cycles of these different assets so that you're continually deploying them into the fleet on steel?
What a great summation, though, of the problem, right? Because we tend to treat everything as if it is, has a longer life cycle, whereas software needs to be updated all the time, right? Our adversaries in the cyber world never ever rest, and so we have to make sure that it is a continuous update. As far as aligning them, what we do is we work with the people who own the processes associated with, if you're talking about like modernization and things like that, we work with the people who own those processes to make sure that they're updated to reflect the differences between, I always say, we shouldn't treat a software update or a software patch the same way we do a propeller changeout, right? But if you read some of our manuals, they will treat them the exact same. And I'm not kidding, by the way. So that's kind of what we're getting after. We've made tremendous headway. The ability to deliver updates to software over the air, you can imagine the amount of change that had to go on from the entire value chain of how you deliver capability. And so there's been a lot of really good work on that. Still more to go. We want to make sure that when when you want to change out a computer, that it doesn't need to be sorry for the acronyms, but an SCD, right? A big ship change document. It should be something simple. It's pulling this one out, sliding that one in. It should be that simple. Now it's on us to make sure that it's that simple, right? Don't reject any more heat, take in any more electricity, any of that sort of stuff. But that's where we need to get to, where we could just, change in and out. Live within our footprint, change out the hardware and stuff as needed, but software needs to be continuous. Great question.
This is a related question. Is there any plans to share that kind of, I'll call it technology, because there are some programs that are spinning their wheels to do those kind of over-the-air updates when others, I'm hearing, do it routinely in your shop. So I'd like to try to get that information out to the whole NAVWAR so that our program offices can all benefit from that.
They all know about it. I mean, if you're just talking about at NAVWAR, or just, I'm sorry.
He didn't want to use the program name, but yes.
Yeah, it's a journey. I don't know what to tell you. I say that if you have a piece of capability that has software embedded, to just take that and re-architect it, right, to be containerized and being able to be hosted and delivered over the air, that does take some effort to get there. And in the environment that we've been in, there's not a lot of headroom to say, oh, I'm not going to do this thing. Instead, I'm going to re-architect my software with no capability update, right, just so that I can go over the air. Now, I would say, yes, absolutely, we ought to be doing that. But it does take effort. It's not as simple. But we've been, some of it is just learn by doing and just keep grinding and keep demonstrating the path to get there. We're building up a cadre of people who are really, really good at this stuff. And eventually everybody will be on board. You can tell me afterward who the program is.
Admiral, good afternoon. This is Vance Berhosky from Frontier Technology. It's good to see you, shipmate. As you talked about people in an organization are the ones that do the heavy lift in moving things forward, you've been in the job now for a certain period of time. You'll turn over the deck and the con to your relief at some point in the future. So the question that I have for you is, as you ultimately move on to your next assignment, what do you want your legacy to be from NAVWAR? Thank you.
I honestly have never even thought about that.
So I've stumped you.
Yeah, just to, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. Thanks for the question, though, shipmate.
Hello, Admiral. John Cohet with Galt Aerospace. I'll jump in here and I'll jump on the theme of continuous updating and improvements in software. I was just at an Air Force forum that General Copsey, who's running the ABMS program, made a comment that said, we in the Air Force are tired of software licensing. We don't want software licensing anymore. But if you're really looking at continuous improvement, license enables that that continuous business path to making those improvements. Any thoughts on software licensing in the future in the Navy?
So I certainly, I don't know what perspective he was coming at it from. There are certain aspects of licensing and things like that that do need to change. But I think what you're getting at is, the trade from developing a bespoke piece of software that goes along with a capability on a set piece of hardware that then I install the whole box. That's sort of the traditional model of delivering capability. Whereas what we're more than enabling, what we're doing is we are developing and delivering containerized software that lives on a PAS, over the air, all that. Clearly, there is a lot of software that enables that has to be licensed for, and we fully understand that. Now, one of the things that we do work with industry on is the Navy should be different from a company that's out developing stuff and using your software for that, right? Sailors that are just, maintaining their IT equipment, they shouldn't count in part of the head count of, how you develop whatever your license is. So we're asking for a different method of calculating what should this licensing construct be for military use, because it's just not the same as if you're licensing it to a company, right, that's using it to develop something new. It's a different model. So that's kind of where I would come from. With the translation being, they're really expensive sometimes, and we really need to get the pricing down on the licensing, because it prices us out of being able to do it. Kind of back to the point earlier on some of the programs that are looking at doing this. If you're trading, like, hey, right now I'm in sustainment, and I have 2 ISEAs that's all I have to pay for, or I have to shift over, re-architect my software, and then pay licensing for the paths that I'm going to go on. That's a whole new financial construct, and it just makes it that much harder. So you can help us with that by working with us to change the way those licensing models work. And some of you have been, just not everyone. But yeah, we recognize that that's sort of the way you got to do business now.
Hi, I'm Becky Vincent. Our company is Vincent Enterprises. We're a San Diego-based woman-owned small business providing engineering business solutions. And my question is really, what is currently in your repertoire that you are most concerned about? What is the top 1 or 2 things that you're stressed out about and that are keeping you up at night?
So I'll just, nothing keeps me up at night. Honestly, I sleep really well. I prioritize my sleep. Everybody should prioritize your sleep. By the way, it's the largest contiguous block of time in any day that you have to account for. It's part of work-life balance, which I can keep going on this. But I think I'll just kind of go back to my number one priority on it's the people, right? It's the competition for talent. We take the responsibility of being the nation's information warfare systems command very, very seriously. And we have to be constantly peopled by the best that there are. And in a world where information technology and all this stuff is changing so fast, we have to make sure that the systems that we have in place to bring in and continue to nurture the talent that we have is in place. And the government, can be a bit inflexible in that. And so it's our job as leaders to, through that system, really make sure that we develop the whole person. I talked earlier about like a lot of the data science training and things like that. So we're causing everybody to get a baseline of knowledge in that. This is just one example. Unleashing creativity through a lot of the application development and things like that, and working in some of the enterprise applications and things. But it's just a constant. It's a constant effort to make sure that we're bringing in and nurturing the best talent that the nation needs. That would be our number one thing.
Admiral, as you know, the Army and the Air Force have 4-star material commands. The Navy does not. I think it got rid of its NAVMAT in the 1980s. I've heard a lot in the last couple days about how we need a better acquisition system in the Navy, how we need better readiness, how we need cheaper systems, more of them, and so forth. Do you think it would be better for the Navy to go back to a 4-star Naval Material Command to speak at the 4-star level for Navy acquisition priorities, including those of NAVWAR?
I'd say, the short answer, I think, is no. I don't know that we need to go to a 4-star command. But honestly, I don't know really how it works in the other services. 4-star commands come with a lot. I don't know that that's the answer. Honestly, I think we need to, if it's whether it's performance of individual programs or a willingness to take risk, or the often overused innovation. It's to me that needs to be more democratized. We need to have more people doing that at lower levels. Give them the authority to do those things at the lowest level possible, and then turn the senior leaders into how can I get things out of the way to get what you have as an idea onto a ship or into a Marine unit. That's the way I think it ought to work. But I don't know if that. Hopefully that makes sense.
What an introduction that was. Hi, Admiral. I'm Ruth Ann Reese from Leidos. Going back to your people are the first priority, how are you dealing with the desire to work from home and yet having to have people working on classified programs? How is that impacting you?
Yeah, it impacts everybody. This whole balance of, and we certainly work from home is part of it, but the way we talk about it is flexibility. And what we've tried to do is be as flexible as we possibly can in how people can do their work. We're also, as part of our, in our digitalization priority that I brought up, one of the things that we're looking at is what do we need to do from an infrastructure standpoint to make sure that people can have more flexibility even on the classified work? Because as, back to kind of the people side of things, we have to be ready for a workforce that is totally changed and don't want to come into the office and work, whether it's really cool classified stuff or not. We have to still be able to attract that talent. And we believe that there are capabilities out there that will allow that. We just need to make sure that we're, that's why things like this are so important, right? Because we see what capabilities are out there to do this kind of work. But it's a big issue. It hasn't impacted our ability to do that stuff yet, but it is definitely one of those things that causes some of the, even, and this isn't just in defense, but there's a lot of workforce mobility out there as people get better options, whether it's remote options or otherwise. We're going to have this. We're dealing with the same sorts of things. So we have been looking at what can we do to make sure that we can offer those kinds of flexibilities no matter what kind of work you're doing. But great question. And no easy answers either.
Hi, Admiral Charles Yeomans at Adam Beam. So mine is just very general. What do you think the biggest challenge technically that you have is, just sort of broadly most important, that kind of thing?
I think just my opinion, okay? But I'll kind of go back to the opening thing about the disruption and why I think disruption is needed. I think the biggest technical thing that we have, and this is just my opinion, this is not, okay, is how do we change the game in what and how we deliver and what we deliver at speed and scale. And by changing the game, I mean, I mentioned in the other, if you look at our acquisitions now, it's, our is my microphone on still? Everybody hear me? Okay. It's a few exquisite systems, right, that are exquisite. They're amazing. They're also really expensive, eat up a huge portion of the amount of, funding basically that we have to procure anything. So how are we changing the game to make sure that we can deliver to the warfighter a similar effect, but with a different mechanism? I think that's why we're all so excited about, the prospect of unmanned and bringing autonomous behaviors to unmanned systems. I mean, what we're seeing going on in the world is pretty incredible when you can achieve strategic effect with unmanned systems. It's not lost on us. And so, but I think the technical challenge is how do we change the whole system, not just the acquisition side, because CNO talked about a new robotics rating, right? This has to go through the entire system of how do you take on something that new and figure out how to fight with it. We have organizations that do that stuff, but too often, like any organization, we get very comfortable with doing what we did last year and the year before instead of pivoting to whatever is new. And that, to me, is probably the biggest challenge, technical and otherwise. How'd I do? Was it terrible?
Hi, sir. Justin Katz with Breaking Defense. You were talking about software factories and the Navy's desire to be able to update its technology over the air, very much like commercial industry does. One of the things that I've noticed in other services is that they have a number of software factories across the services, and I'm not sure how many factories the Navy has, but I'm wondering, do you see any risk in having a large number of software factories across the Navy? And it may not be you, but is there a pinpoint in the Navy who is responsible or held accountable to make sure all of these software factories are on the same page and they're not going to end up butting heads when, ships actually are in the water?
Yeah, a great question. We get asked about that a lot in terms of numbers of software factories and whatnot. I will. Well, first off, I'll offer Secretary Gerten's ideas on technical reference frameworks and how those are really the sort of the. If you have a reference framework for information warfare, then maybe there's a tool chain associated with that. If you have a reference framework for combat systems, you may have a tool chain associated with that. If you think about it just from a DevOps handbook type mentality, our philosophy is we have to start with ops. So we look at what do our sailors and Marines operate and maintain today? right? So that's your ops. Then I have to make sure that I have parity in dev, right? So that my developers are working on the exact systems that my operators are maintaining and operating. That leads to a tool chain that we can say, well, there's too many tool chains, but that's because we have different operators and different operating environments, different technical reference frameworks, right, that lead to that. So me personally, I wish we had more software factories. I wish we would pay less for the cloud consumption, kind of back to the licensing thing, okay? But we need more software factories. I need more people working in software factories, working in developing containerized software using everything available to the most world-class software developers that are, working at, places like Google and Facebook and every place else. We want that type of capability, okay? And so we have a tool chain and an environment that leads information warfare capability to our paths. That's sort of what it is. Okay. Now, hopefully, that doesn't get printed as small. Wants just, but I want more people thinking and developing in those terms. We've kind of cracked the code on how to get that parity and deliver that software over the air. We've also done a lot of work on the cybersecurity aspect of that. How to do cybersecurity in DevSecOps. That is something that's Don CIO signed out as this is now how you do it across any of these environments. So we're definitely working across the Navy to get after this, but we have to have different development environments because they have to be parity with the operational environment. Okay? I hope that makes sense.
Yes, sir. Kind of following up on a couple of the other questions, where the cycle time, depending on the product, is either decades or seconds. But the acquisition process is designed to be, risk is a four-letter word. Yeah. So how does the service step away from the stigma that if I take risk as a program manager, either government or industry, and fail, I get shot? Because that's the prevailing paradigm right now. There's no reward for risk, which certainly impacts your ability to infuse new technology.
So, I certainly understand the sentiment of the question. I don't fully agree. I don't. If you are constructing an aircraft carrier, a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, please be deliberate and do your darndest to make sure that thing is perfect every day and take very little risk when it comes to power plant and things like that. If you're working on C2 software that the sailor wants the icon changed from blue to chartreuse, update it today and take that risk, right? And so there's a whole continuum of that, I think, in between. And I don't know that, one thing I will agree with you on is we don't reward people who take risks. That is absolutely true. We don't do a good job with that. That's something I'm going to take back. But that is absolutely true. We tell people all the time, hey, take risk, take risk, take risk. We ought to have this person took risk and failed spectacularly, learned this, and then improved it and did this much better, right? That should be an award. That's a great idea. I like that. Our next award ceremony, we're going to have that. We're going to have that exact thing. The neat thing, kind of circle back to sort of the software development thing is, what's neat about that environment is you fail every day. But the key is you do it on a small scale and you learn about it every day, so you fix it, right? It's just the way the world works now. You have to take those things every single day. Fail, learn, fix, keep going. Next question. Sounds like there's a meeting going on back there, too. Anyone? Jessica, do you have a question? No, it's okay. I'll just stand here awkwardly.
Yeah, I can remember when Commander Schwal was in CWIP and we talked about international armaments cooperation. I think I remember briefing you on data exchange agreements, information exchange agreements. Are those prevalent at NAVWAR? Or is there a lot of international armaments cooperation? Is that helpful? Do they eventually evolve into project arrangements with other countries?
Absolutely. I mean, and for anybody who heard, Admiral Paro speak today, he only speaks of the U.S. Navy in the context of allies and partners, right? It's just a huge consideration. Even beyond the, we used to talk interoperability, then it was, no, we need to be interchangeable. He speaks of it as if it's one, really Western entity, right? Is the United States with allies and partners, and we never see ourselves as anything other than part of that unit. And absolutely the same thing is true in everything that we do. Even we certainly have exchange program people on board in many of our programs. We have many international cooperative development programs. Project Overmatch is actually in the final throes of a Five Eyes arrangement, and we've been certainly working, around the world with allies and partners. Because C2 at its heart has to be an allied and partnered effort, right? So yeah, it's huge. It's huge. You bet. There's a question: as far away from you as possible, Disco.
Got it, sir. Hi, Ian Stokes-Reese, BCG Federal. So I'm involved with some of the CJAD C2 work that's unfolding. And my personal read is that the spirit of it in terms of integrated, connected sensors and data sources hasn't felt like it's made a lot of progress. I'm wondering if you could comment on standards and the need for standards for data communication and interchange and interoperability, and dual-use technologies and leveraging dual-use technologies for systems, software, that kind of thing, to potentially open up Project Overmatch and ABMS and the bigger CJAD C2. Thank you.
So I will. CJAD C2 at its core is about command and control. It's not about lightning bolts connecting every sensor with every weapon. That kind of was the early on. That's the way everybody kind of talked about it. And if you saw a pitch about JAD C2, it was lightning bolts connecting everybody's everything to everything. It's about command and control. Again, coalition, joint, all domain command and control. Admiral Swift, by the way, is here somewhere. If you ever want to hear somebody speak extemporaneously on command and control and how one of the worst things we ever did was take the two C's, and then pair it with the rest of the C's and the I and the S and the T, because every time we talk about C2, we talk about it in the terms of the technology associated with C4ISR, and really it's about the command relationships and then how do you control forces. So I'll start with that. So in the terms of standards, and again, I'll just say I don't envision us creating any new standards for anything, frankly. It takes too long. It's not, really what we want to do is take a page out of commercial industry's book and say, I need to conform to this, published API to exchange data between data repositories. standards, things like that. I don't want to say everything has to be in this certain format, and that way the joint force can exchange data. So that's kind of been our approach, is let's take a look at how does industry do this kind of work and follow that path. Within the Navy, one of the things we've been focused on is the CDAO organization has been working on this data integration layer. So what our focus has been is on how do we connect our fleet with that data integration layer. And that's been a part of the Project Overmatch, the data part of our Project Overmatch pillar. So I don't know that I answered every part of your question, but I think in general, it's really C2 is the core, and that means, how do leaders make decisions, not necessarily all the systems that go into all that. The other thing I'll say is we work very deliberately with our joint partners. I mentioned somebody asked a question about ABMS and Luke Cropsey and that team. We work hand in glove with the Air Force and the Army on this stuff. So, okay. And by on the data, it's not to say that data doesn't sometimes need to be translated, but we have tools again developed to be able to do that translation so that not everybody has to comply with the same standard. I hope that makes sense. If there's any data nerds out there, you can translate for me what I just said. That's what I'm told to say every time, so hopefully it wasn't too far off the mark. Okay, other questions?